So today we're going to be working on this Makino A61, making these 4 little sensor housings. We're doing 4 identical parts at a time. They're just flipped upside down. This is just showing in general the Op1 fixture and what the Op1 parts look like, and the Op2 fixture with the Op2 parts right below it. This is just an example of what the part looks like when it's done. Not very complicated, but there is a few tight tolerance features. Here's the part off Op1 with the bore and the little slot done at the same time, which I'll show right here is because there's a 1/1000 true position between that bore and that slot, and a 5/10 flatness to the secondary datum. This is an example of the fixture with the blanks in there, 2 pit bulls on each with some talons in between. You'll notice I like using those a lot on a lot of my different fixtures, and Op2 with the Uniforce clamps that hold the raw blanks. And this is just a close-up view of what the fixture looks like without anything in there. The Op1 blank, which slides right in there with about 1/1000th clearance. So we start the little things off with a face mill, just a quick little dusting of the top, takes off 10/1000 just to make a nice clean face for the top of Op1. And then we move over to the bottom and we take the rest of the top hat off of the Op2 parts. So next up is a standard 3/8 3-flute end mill. Right here I'm just slotting through the middle of the parts so that when I use my 3D adaptive it doesn't try to nibble its way through. And spindle spools up after I burn myself. And just doing a roughing pass. This isn't going crazy fast because I didn't really want the parts to ever get ripped out of the fixture. So it's going pretty conservatively on the feed rate. Here's just what it looks like with the coolant on, roughing out that little tab out of the side. Like I said, it's going pretty conservative on the speeds and feeds for this. Then we'll take a look at some finish cuts around the outside right here. And then we move on to finishing the datum B surface. This has a 5/10 flatness on it, so I have to go relatively slowly when I finish this just to ensure that there's no taper and no steps in that face. Then we bore the back holes that intersect with the through bore on these parts. And then we move on to the tight tolerance bores on the side. This is just a bore tool path to rough them out, the bottom part and then the top part with the coolant on. Now we move on to a 3/8 3-flute end mill with a 60 thou corner radius I'm using to surface these radiuses. And yes, I am aware it's sticking out much longer than it has to be, but it was already in the machine, so it was easier for me. Followed by a little 2mm 3-flute end mill that's roughing out those datum slots on Op1, and then moves down and roughs out the grooves around the holes on Op2. Then we have our 1/8 inch 3-flute end mill that's roughing out the through slots for the bolt clearances right here. And then it roughs out the counterboard slots that are on top of those screws for clearance for the heads of the bolts. And just like always, we add some little 10/1000th edge breaks on every edge we can get to with a 3/16 drill mill right here. Also not going crazy fast because I wanted a nice finish on the chamfer on these parts. But moving on to Op2, chamfering the slots and all the holes that I can get to right here. And spotting all the holes in the back, just so the chamfer is left there. And because I'm using high-speed steel drills, I need it for position. It rotates around, spots all the side holes, and then we add some nice little chamfers on that bore. And the worst part about running a horizontal, using something on the back so you can't see. Then we move on to the tap drill for the side holes right here, and the front, which uses the same drill and tap. Different 136 drill just for some clearance holes for some through bolts on these parts. And the final operation is just roll tapping some threads in the tops of all these parts and onto the side holes. I normally roll tap everything unless it's a hard material that doesn't like being form tapped. And for anyone interested, These parts here have to get checked 100% on the CMM for accuracy. So this part, I didn't go too in depth with modeling when I made the fixture for this. I got the 8-inch vise that it's in, a general tombstone for the machine, and then the fixture that goes inside of the vise. I made it with little steps on it, so you just put it inside of a 6 or 8-inch vise and clamp it down. So this is basically what I came up with for these parts to do 4 at a time. You see the 4 pieces of material with the talon grips in between them, grabbing onto only about 100 thou, the pit bowls on the bottoms of those. You'll see the little holes I milled in the side of the fixtures just for clearance for those little M3 holes that come in on each side. And as I hide the parts right here, I'm just going to show how, if you look at the pockets that I made for the parts on Op 2, you can see how all the corners are relieved out with little Mickey Mouse ears on all the Op 2 pockets. You need to do this because when you mill something, you can't mill a square corner. And if you leave a radius somewhere where the part has an external square corner, the part obviously won't fit. So you can see here I had to actually add that so that none of the corners would interfere in the fixture. Right here is a great example of if I didn't have that radius there, the part would not be able to fit in the pocket. So when I design a fixture and do the cam for it, I try to make it as easy for the setup person as possible. As you see here, I made the work coordinate system for the entire 8 parts, just that one counter bore in the top right there. So as we start going through the tool paths, simple facing passes for Op 1 and Op 2. There's my slotting out of my 3/8 end mill, and then the 3D adaptive to rough the parts out. I used component patterns a lot on these parts, so I have finishing passes for one part, and then I added a component pattern. I selected one of them, and it patterns it around for you. So here's just boring out the through bores on the part. Then we move on, we're boring out the side holes. This is the roughing pass, milling those little chamfers. And then, as you'll see here, when I go to the finish pass for these tight tolerance bores, I actually did 3 finish passes with a repeat pass, 1,000 step over, which is how I got rid of the taper in that hole with such a long end mill. I do the same exact passes again on the opposite side for the opposite parts. So you'll see here the radiuses I'm surfacing on the top of this with the 3/8 end mill. If you notice, the tool path is actually larger than the surface that I'm actually doing. I do that so that the end mill goes all the way off the part, and I'm actually using these offset surfaces, which I'll show at the end of this video how to do, to force the tool to go off the side of the radius when it's actually milling it. Then I ramp out the little datum C steps with the 2mm end mill. I love ramping because I find it's much more reliable than just plunging into a hole and slotting. Then I'm also ramping out these little grooves around the holes. Then you see some more ramping of the 1/8 end mill, a 2D adaptive to rough out the clearances right here, and then a 2D contour just to finish it with my pre-drill point selected in that slot. These are all my little chamfer edge breaks that I have, also patterned. And if you look here, I pretty much got to every edge that I could. I don't like manual deburring because it doesn't look as good as chamfers do. All my chamfers on Op 2, followed by the spots that you saw for the holes. The spots, which the spot drill goes through those clearance holes, and then we move up to the top to put a little edge break on the front side of those tight tolerance bores, followed by the spots on the opposite side and the opposite side chamfers. Some uninteresting drilling of the M3 holes on the side. Here's just a G81 cycle drilling out the top ones, then drilling out the opposite side through the same holes, drilling out the 136 holes, and tapping all the holes in the front and both sides. So I got quite a few comments in my last video asking how I did my offset patches for my surfacing on the last part I did. So I just drew up a quick 3D contour toolpath here on this part. I selected the 2 radiuses that I wanted to machine as the CAD model. And when I click OK here, you'll see the toolpath machines the radiuses fine, but it goes exactly to the edge of the wall where the radius is. Now, I don't like that in general because the motion control of the machine will generally leave a little step on the side of where the radius ends. And if you look here as I run through this toolpath, the tool is quite literally going right to the edge of that part, right where the radius stops, and then switching direction, which in general does not really leave that good of a finish because the machine has no time to accelerate or decelerate, and the transition lines are right on top of your part. Whereas if you look here, the toolpath extends far beyond the outside of the part, which when you're doing your transition moves, it actually gives the machine time to accelerate and decelerate before it starts cutting, and to step up and step down is actually off the part instead of being right on the edge. As I show here, the tool extends far beyond the surface where it's actually machining that radius. And this is a really effective way of guaranteeing you're not going to end up with any type of a ramp or a step on the end of either side of the radius right there. So if we go into my toolpath, the only difference between the other one and this one is the models that I selected are the offset patches, which you can see there actually extend a long ways past the outside of where the radius on the CAD model shows is. So as we hop over into the design environment right here, I'm just going to go through how to do this quick. Go into the surface workspace and we're going to do create and offset. Now as you see here, there's an option for chaining. And if you try to click one of these with the chaining turned on, it tries to select the entire part. So we have to make sure that it's off, and we click both of those faces with the offset at 0, and we end up with 2 new bodies, which are going to turn into our driving surfaces for the radius. We're going to go into the modify section and click extend. Now in extend, the most important option is how you're going to align the edges. As you see here, when we start extending it out and we don't have align edges turned on, the surface itself actually flares out at the end if it's not exactly perpendicular. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say half the tool is 187.5 and the radius is 60, so I go half of that. And I'm going to do that formula on both sides here, and that's how far I'm going to extend the surface in general. That's going to make sure that when it comes down, it doesn't plunge onto the part. And you can actually do both sides at once if you change your number back to 0. And as we extend these radiuses and I turn the part back on, you'll see how they're extended that amount past the radiuses on the CAD model. This is what we're going to tell CAM is the radius we actually want it to machine rather than the radius that it sees on the CAD file. You have to make sure that you do not have that checkbox below the model selected, or it'll try to use the entire model as your radius and it's not going to effectively do what you're trying to get. Now if you look here, with the radiuses that I just offset, the toolpath extends all the way past and we will end up without having steps on the side of the radius. Now my surfaces that I used, I actually add a 2-degree taper off on the top of my surfaces, which you can see right there. So this makes sure that if the tool height's off at all, the top of the radius never digs into the top face of the part. It actually tapers off with the toolpath instead of ending right where the radius ends. This usually isn't necessary, but it's a nice little trick to include to keep the parts looking good. So all in all, not a very hard part, and just to be clear, this is not the part we're actually making. I changed it for this video. This whole bin is the material of actual parts we have to make, so let's get back to work.